So, is Knott's Berry Farm just done adding new roller coasters? No, I'm serious, that's a genuine question. Are they not gonna add anything anymore? Because Knott's Berry Farm, they haven't gotten anything substantial since 2018. Sure, Hang Time, their Gerstlauer Infinity Coaster was a fine addition, but come on, that was 7 years ago. What's the holdup? The only rumor we've gotten since then was a giga coaster, then it got downgraded to a hyper coaster, and then the rumors just disappeared. Knott's Berry Farm just remained radio silent. They appear to have nothing planned for the future. And I don't think it's Knott's fault. I don't even think it's Six Flags' fault. Knott's Berry Farm is just kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. And unfortunately, I don't see a solution to Knott's roller coaster problem. Why? Well, first let me try to give you a recap. So, Knott's Berry Farm. They're a park that I would have considered one of Cedar Fair's favorites. That was until the middle of 2024 when the Six Flags merger happened, and now I don't know where this park stands anymore. Will Six Flags have any major investments for this park going forward? Or will they be neglected and left behind? Knott's Berry Farm is a park that has a very serious problem when it comes to land, because they don't have any. The park is 100% developed, which means there's no room to expand. Even if Six Flags really wanted to build a new coaster, they couldn't. Because where could you construct a coaster if there's no space to build it? Remember how a few years ago a plan leaked about Knott's Berry Farm's Giga Coaster and nothing came out of it? Why do you think that happened? Well, it was because they couldn't get the plan approved by the city. Knott's Berry Farm doesn't have any space for a Giga Coaster, so what were they gonna do? They were gonna build the ride in the parking lot. It was gonna stretch outside the traditional bounds of Knott's Berry Farm and travel into their parking lot. The issue with that is, the ride would go right up along the perimeter of the parking lot, which means the ride would be right next to local businesses and residential homes. And as you can imagine, the people who work and live in these areas don't really want a 300-foot tall coaster right at their doorstep. Knott's Berry Farm has historically had a lot of problems with noise complaints. That's one of the main reasons why you see noise dampeners on the roller coasters. You think that tunnel on Ghost Rider is just for appearance alone? No, they're trying to muffle the sound from the roller coaster. So if Knott's Berry Farm built a coaster right along the edge of the park, do you think it won't create any sound? No, of course it will. They can put all the tunnels they want on the ride, but it won't matter. The public is still going to be cautious about the noise. And that's primarily why this Giga Coaster never happened. And I really wanted it to happen. This coaster was going to be 347 feet. It was going to rival Fury. It could have been better than Fury. This thing was going to be the tallest Giga Coaster in the world. And it wasn't going to be a half-baked model like Orion. No, this thing was going to be substantial. But unfortunately, it never got approved. 3 years have gone by since those plans leaked, and nothing came from them. And after the Giga Coaster project failed, Knott's Berry Farm tried their luck with a different roller coaster model. Instead of a Giga, they proposed a Hyper. And instead of being along the perimeter of the parking lot, it would be right next to Ghost Town and along the side of Soak City, and would even attempt to go under Beach Boulevard, the road that's right next to the entrance of the park. Ironically, this roller coaster would have been more ambitious than the Giga, and yet it still didn't happen. Even when Knott's Berry Farm scaled the project down substantially from a Giga to a Hyper, they still couldn't get it approved. And I don't even want to call this thing a hyper coaster because it really wasn't. The ride would have capped out at a max height of, I think, 150 feet, which doesn't even qualify as a hyper. It still needs to pass the 200-foot threshold. But you know what? Who even cares? It's not happening anyway. So if Knott's Berry Farm can't get a Giga Coaster, they can't get a Hyper Coaster, and they can't find out where to build a new roller coaster, then what do? What other option does Knott's Berry Farm have? I know Cedar Fair had a lot of faith in this park. And maybe they still do as Six Flags, who knows? But if they can't find the basic requirement of land, then the park is just kind of shit out of luck. Because the only other option they have is to either acquire more land or start tearing out rides. And I hate to say it, but I think they're gonna go with option number 2. There's no land around Knott's Berry Farm they can acquire. So Demolition is really their only choice of action. And sadly, I think Accelerator will be the first to go. I know a lot of people love this coaster, but I'm sorry, it's time for it to leave. Accelerator is probably one of the most unreliable coasters at Knott's Berry Farm. And hey, it may even be one of the most unreliable coasters, period, because this coaster is almost never open. Even though there are a lot of people out there who enjoy Accelerator, I can't say that I'm one of them, because I've never ridden Accelerator. Every single time I've been to Knott's Berry Farm, this coaster has been closed. It's not because it was just temporarily delayed. No, this ride was just never open. And frankly, I'm sick of it. How could this coaster be shut down every single time I go to Knott's Berry Farm? Am I really just that unlucky? Maybe. Or is it more likely that Knott's Berry Farm just can't get this ride to work? There was a time when Accelerator was shut down for an entire year because they couldn't fix the hydraulic launch. I know these types of roller coasters are unreliable, but an entire year? Are you kidding me? At that point, is the juice worth the squeeze? Wouldn't it be better for the park to just remove Accelerator? Again, Knott's Berry Farm is landlocked, so the space that Accelerator occupied could be very valuable. And maybe if they remove this coaster, they can also remove Coast Rider. That way they can double the land and potentially build an even bigger roller coaster. That seems like a better alternative than keeping a ride that's never open. But you know what? Maybe Knott's Berry Farm doesn't want to do that. Maybe they want to keep Accelerator. So, what other options do they have? Well, I actually don't know. Every other attraction at Knott's Berry Farm seems pretty engraved into the park. None of them feel close to the end of their service life. Except maybe Montezooma? That thing hasn't been open since 2022, and it's not even there anymore. They keep saying it's gonna open in 2025, but I don't believe that. It was supposed to open last year, and so far nothing has been built. The land is basically a permanent construction zone. So are they actually trying to replace Montezooma, or are they just twiddling their thumbs and hoping something might happen? At this point, it seems like it would be better to just level the land and build something else in its place. But that's kind of tricky considering the land Montezooma took up was very compact and narrow and could only realistically fit a Skyrocket 2. And you know what? I don't like Skyrocket 2s. I would much rather prefer for them to keep Montezooma then. So if replacing Montezooma isn't an option, then that's it. Knott's Berry Farm is doomed. They have no land to work with. Unless they can somehow get approved to use their parking lot, then that's it. They have nothing. They're gonna have to take a Gronalund approach and start building on top of themselves. If there is air above your head, then a roller coaster can go there. That's the mentality they're gonna have to work with. Because Montezooma and Accelerator, those were the only rides they could plausibly take out. But after thinking about it a little more, I'm pretty sure I know why Knott's Berry Farm doesn't want to take out Accelerator. Remember, Accelerator is located at the corner of Knott's Berry Farm, which means it basically borders two roads. So, if they took out Accelerator, they would have to get approval for another roller coaster, and they might not get it this time around. California has gotten a lot more strict since 2003 when Accelerator opened. Which means if they took out this ride, there's a good possibility it might never get replaced. It would be the exact same scenario as the Giga coaster. The new ride would be built right by a bunch of private businesses, and noise would be a huge complaint. And Knott's Berry Farm probably doesn't want to take that gamble, so it's easier to just keep Accelerator as opposed to removing and replacing it. But I hope that sometime in the future, Knott's Berry Farm can get a new roller coaster, because they really do need a standout ride. It's just unfortunate that I don't see it coming anytime soon. Until Knott's Berry Farm gets approved by the city, they're gonna continue to be screwed over.